Hello from Southern California. My name is Vivian Mabuni, and I am going to speak on the how parenting is an adventure in surrender. So, first off, just full disclosure, when I was first invited to participate as one of the presenters for this digital event, I really struggled and thought, "No, you really don't want me as a parent. I know what to share of what not to do, but I certainly am no expert in parenting." And then when I found out that the whole event was about perfectly imperfect parenting, I thought I can get behind imperfect parenting. In my experience as a parent, I have found that parenting surfaces so much of my own stuff that I didn't even know was there. Like I used to think I was a nice person. So I come to you today from the perspective of that, of having now grown young adults. So, boy, I could just share hours and boatloads of stories of what not to do. But I am seeking to come to you with some principles from scripture as well as just principles of life that I've learned in my now 27 years as a parent. I'm also coming to you with a perspective of being on staff with Crew, and of the 31 years we've been on staff, 28 of those years we worked closely with college students, my husband and I. So we've seen every imaginable combination of college student who has been raised in an amazing home with generations of Christians, and then those who've also been raised in horrendous situations and seeing the incredible young men and women they've become. I imagine that those of you who are watching right now are coming from a wide range of situations and circumstances. Some of you are single parents. Some of you are parenting a blended family. Some of you are in just a crisis mode right now with a worldwide pandemic, sheltering in place, working from home, perhaps trying to figure out schooling for your kids. And it's just been, you've just come to the end of your rope. And parenting has been extremely challenging in this season. Some of you are just new, and you're hoping to just glean as much as you can so that you can do the best that you can. And what I've found from over the years of speaking with thousands of parents is that for the most part, every parent wants to do the best that they can. And we do seek to do the best that we can with what we know. I do think that there's value in having the perspective of someone who has gone before, that this picture of mentoring is so important, especially in this day and age when we don't have generations necessarily living close by for us to ask our questions. So I'm thankful that there is this format, this platform, to hear from a wide range of people on this very important topic. And my small contribution in that is really I'm a fellow traveler. I love Jesus, and I, as a parent, want to do right by him. I want to do right by my kids, and I am absolutely imperfect, and parenting I have found to be one of the most humbling endeavors of anything I've ever done in my life. So I will just share very briefly a few life principles and just some perspective that I pray you will find to be helpful. The first principle that I want to cover is just that parenting, in the same way that no two thumbprints are the same, there is no cookie cutter way of parenting. And for most of my early years as a parent, I really was looking for a formula that would help my children be set up in the very best way to know the Lord and love him and love other people. And I kind of just was hoping for a guarantee. Like if I could just do this sleep method or this training, then I would have this outcome. And what I've found, and I imagine what you have found, is that no two kids are the same, and their wiring is different, and what they're motivated by is different, and brain chemistry is a real thing. Some of you are parents with children with disabilities or special needs. My kids are all ADHD, so that's a whole challenge in terms of parenting when you're dealing with neurotypical. So we all come from such varying backgrounds. Some of us have had the benefit of wise people in our lives to invest into our parenting, and some of us are literally just reading anything and everything to find what to do. And I found myself in that position. My family was far away and I was very isolated, so I just read as much as I could and tried the best I could. But what I realized and what is true is that we seek to have a certain outcome that we actually are not in control of. So probably one of the biggest lessons for me is that each of my children are on their own journey, and God has entrusted them for me to help raise for a certain amount of time, but ultimately they will walk their own path. They will make their own decisions. They will live with the consequences of those decisions. And my part as a parent is to love as well as I know how, and to help teach certain principles, but ultimately they will make their choices. They will decide if they want to walk with Jesus. They will decide which path they end up taking. So as a parent, there's really God's part and then there's our part. And I believe our part is pretty simple. First, our part is that as we are imperfect parents, when we blow it, not if, but when we blow it with our kids, be quick to apologize and be quick to admit when we're wrong. I find that our kids are actually quite resilient, and they know when we are just wrong, and when they are validated by a true apology, that can make the biggest difference. I remember for me, I had 3 kids in 3 schools for a season and just was backing in and out of the garage like multiple times a day. And one of those times, I had picked up my oldest, and at the time he was in middle school, just about to enter high school, and he had early out, so I pulled into the garage and we started having this really significant conversation. And I honestly thought, I'm doing pretty good as a mom. We're actually really connecting, talking about some really important things about motivation and how our decisions now can affect the future, like some really deep things, you know? And so I was kind of patting myself on the shoulder going, good job, Mom. And then all of a sudden my cell phone rings, and I pick it up and I look, and it's the school. And so, my oldest gets out of the car and I pick up the call and I go, hello? And it's my preschool age daughter on the other end. Mom, you forgot me. Like, oh my goodness. And so I'm like, oh, I'll be right there. You're in the office, right? I'll be right there. I'll be right there. I'm so sorry. Hang up and back out, and I drive to go and pick up my daughter. And she gets into the car. Arms are crossed. She's just so mad. And I just said, oh, I'm so sorry. I was talking with Jonathan and, lost track of time. I'm so sorry. Will you forgive me? Cold frown. And as we're driving, she goes, did you ever forget my brothers? I'm thinking, oh, yes, of course. I've forgotten your brothers before too. How many times? Lots of times, I think. So in my mind, I'm thinking, are you kidding me? I have picked you up like thousands of times without forgetting. And it wasn't like I was watching a soap opera. Like I was like connecting with your older brother. I'm driving. And then I'm thinking, and you should just be thankful that I wasn't just watching a soap opera, but was having a meaningful conversation with your brother, or that you even have a car or that I would even pick you up. I grew up in Colorado and we had to walk to school. We had to walk in the snow to school, and you get picked up. Like, you should just be grateful. I'm thinking this. And then we go and pick up her other older brother, middle son, and he jumps in the car with his friend, and they're just like, so much energy, and they could not wait to get home and eat their Totino's pizza rolls, or their bagel bites. And so anyway, we pull into the garage finally. My daughter's brother and his friend jump out of the car to go eat snacks, and it was one of those moments where I just felt like God's Spirit stopped me, and I got out of my seat and I went back to where she was in her car seat, and I just looked at her straight in the eyes and just said, I wonder if when I didn't show up to pick you up, if you might have felt really worried because you didn't know where I was. And then I wonder if when your teacher had to take you to the office and everyone else was gone, if you kind of felt embarrassed because everyone else got picked up and you didn't get picked up. I wonder if you felt angry that I wasn't there when I said I would be there. I wonder if you felt scared because you didn't know what happened to me. And just started having a little tear roll down her cheek, and I was kind of getting a little choked up as well. And I just said, sweetheart, there are times when I yell at you, and in those times I know what I'm doing is wrong, and when I apologize to you, I'm knowing the whole time that what I'm doing is hurting you and it's wrong, and I apologize. But there's some times that I'll do something that I don't even realize, but it still hurts you. And when I didn't show up today, you felt scared and worried and angry, concerned, all these things, and it hurt you, and I'm so sorry. And so with tears in both our eyes, she just throws her arms around me and goes, Mommy, I forgive you. And I share this story because it's so easy when we're rushed to just discount our children's feelings and where they're at. How many times, other times as a parent, I have just and really in my own childhood just said I should just be grateful, and how easy it would be for my daughter to think, you know what, really I should just be thankful that my mom even picks me up, and not really validate how she feels. I'm grateful for that moment because it kind of helped recalibrate my daughter to realize that her experience and her feelings are important and are valid, that she is important, that she is valid. Instead of in the future perhaps being mistreated and thinking, well, I should just still be grateful, or how I feel really doesn't matter. Does that make sense? So what I'm trying to communicate is that we as parents, our part is to deal with our own issues. And for me, and I'm a big proponent of therapy, having a paid friend, it's in therapy that I was realizing that my growing up affected how I saw life. It affects how I see life. And that definitely correlates to how I parent. We do what we are exposed to, and that becomes what we know to do. Without the intervention of other ways of doing things, I would just kind of keep on with my same way. So it was in therapy for me that I realized, you know what, I like to control, and what I was accustomed to, what I had grown up with is whatever you're feeling, it just doesn't matter. You should just be grateful. And that was so to break from that and begin to be able to sit with my daughter and take the time to connect with her on an emotional level is really a helpful parenting principle. So deal with your own stuff is what I'm trying to say. Parenting just surfaces the anger, the unfinished business that we bring in from our own parenting that we were exposed to. And we have an opportunity to grow from that and parent out of a different place. So deal with your own stuff. Be quick to apologize when you've blown it. That will go a long, long way. The second thing I want to share with you is that we do not see the full outcome. Just like, when you at Christmas time, when we get all those beautiful Christmas cards that are on the beach, and even the dog is looking in the camera and everybody's smiling, that's just a snapshot. We don't know in that particular family situation what has gone on before that photo and what's going to go on after that moment. We don't know the end of the story. So in my many years as a parent, as a friend to other parents, we have situations that seem so impossible, and yet 10 years later we have an entirely different situation that we're looking at. So even if everything seems like it's all great, you may see families that you kind of envy because they look externally all put together. But if there's internal stuff that's not being dealt with, it will fruit out in different ways. That's what's so incredible about our God. He's not freaked out about our imperfection. He would love to just join us in our messy imperfection. We don't have to get cleaned up to be with God, and we don't have to clean up our family to be acceptable to God. So my encouragement is we don't see the end of the story. And so even with the families that you may have the hardest time with because everybody seems so put together, you just don't know what gaskets are going to blow down the line or what trials and character forming challenges these families and individuals will walk through down the line. So keep focused on what we're responsible for, and understand that we don't see the end of the story at any point. So for those parents who have kids who've completely fallen off the deep end, we don't see the end of the story. So keep on loving, keep on working on your own issues, and keep on bringing them before the Lord. So that's the third thing I want to talk about is prayer. So I am a firstborn bossy one. In fact, my husband saw in a gift shop, we were out somewhere, and there's like this little, those 50s pictures with the little sayings that are kind of snarky on the side. It was one of those little frame things, and it said, the snarky 50s woman says, I'm not bossy, I just have better ideas. And he bought it for me, which really is reflective of me. So I kind of start to think that I know what's best, and I just have better ideas. And so sometimes that falls right into my prayer life, where I get really demanding in my prayers, like, God, this is the problem, this is the solution that you need to fix in this time and in this way, and like right now. Boy, God has been kind to help me to realize He is so much bigger, and His work is so much greater, and that my demanding that things be fixed this way at this time is not a place of surrender. And God continually calls me to surrender. So rather than throwing my demand list to the heavens, I'm learning day by day to come to the Lord and bring my prayers to Him with a surrendered heart. So one of those things is that sometimes I don't really know what's best in the situation with my kids. So there are times I literally just bring my child or the circumstances in my mind's eye, and I just open my hands and I just say, here. And I believe that that's a very honest prayer that God hears and responds to. The other thing was, I've had the privilege of being a part of a 12-step group for a number of years for codependency, because I am codependent. And I learned that the 12 steps, actually the people that founded the 12 steps, it was based in James, the book of James. And the 11th step of the 12th step is prayer for the knowledge of God's will and the power to carry that out. And that is a prayer of surrender, praying for the knowledge of the will of God and the power to carry that out. Once again, really, when it comes to prayer and our posture, they're all interlinked. And so the book that I wrote, Open Hands, Willing Heart, kind of just is my life mantra, really, because I have seen how surrender is the secret sauce to the Christian life, that we were never meant to live out our Christian faith in our own efforts, because we burn out. If we are willful, we try to do everything right and, by the book, and when done in our own efforts, it leads to burnout, it leads to cynicism, it leads to anger when things don't turn out exactly the way we think because we've put in so much. So that is a willful heart. A will-less heart is whatever, it's just going to be whatever it's going to be. The kids are going to do whatever they choose to do, whatever. That also is not a posture that helps, because we are to be engaged. So a willing heart is one that's like, God, I'm willing to go wherever you say. I'm willing to trust you with the things that I cannot see. My life is yours. My family is yours. These kids are yours. The future is yours. The money is yours. The job is yours. All of it is yours. And I surrender. I yield to you. And even Jesus prayed this in the Garden of Gethsemane. He was like, if there's any way that this cup can pass, if there's any other way, Lord, but not my will, but yours be done. That is a prayer of surrender. So I think God delights to answer our prayers specifically. So I'm not saying to not pray and to not ask the Lord for the things that are important to us, that are on our hearts. But what I am saying is that rather than a demand, it is just a continuation, just like breathing, that we're just talking and connecting with the Lord and continuing to bring what we know of ourselves to what we know of God. It's always safe for us to pray scripture for our kids. Colossians 1:9, praying that we and our families may be filled with the knowledge of God's will in all spiritual wisdom and understanding, so that we can walk in a manner worthy of the Lord, fully pleasing to Him, bearing fruit in every good work and increasing in the knowledge of God. Those kinds of prayers we can pray all the time because they're according to God's word. So I would just want to encourage you to live with open hands and a willing heart. Now, this open hands posture is also part of the surrender, because open hands means that God is free to put things into our life and He's free to take things out. And sometimes the things that He puts into our life are really hard challenges, diagnosis that we didn't expect or want. And sometimes He removes things that we really cared a lot about. And that place of surrender, of opening our hands and being open to God putting in or taking away, is where we actually find freedom. There's no cookie cutter way to parent. No two kids are the same. No two personalities are exactly the same. husbands and wives don't actually often agree completely down the line in theology or any topic, any given topic. And that is by design, because all of us reflect God a little bit differently by design. God created us, and He has put us into the families that He's put us into. Nothing is haphazard, and in God's economy, nothing is wasted. So I want to encourage you, maybe just by way of encouragement for even your own prayer life for yourself. This to me has been kind of an anchor verse, Galatians 2:20. I have been crucified with Christ. It is no longer I who live, but Christ lives in me. And the life I now live in the flesh, I live by faith in the Son of God who loved me and gave Himself for me. As we live in the flesh, we live by faith in Jesus. Not faith that our families are going to look a certain way, not faith in ministry, not faith in how much money is in the bank. Our faith is in Jesus. And it says right here, the Son of God who loved me. We can never get over that, but that is truly the foundation, so that when these things are taken away or put into our lives, our loving God is with us in it all. And sometimes the very hardest things are the places where we transfer head knowledge, knowing about God, to actually knowing Him. And in the same way, when our kids go through hard times, that ability to transfer all of their head knowledge to their heart, the longest distance is between the head and the heart. That often takes place in the place of challenge. So surrender, it's in the surrender that we find the freedom. We find our life by letting go. So that is what I want to pray for you as we end this short time together. Would love to stay connected with you, and I'm really grateful for an opportunity to share with you today. Let me pray. Father, thank you so much for the parents who do love you and the kids that you've entrusted to them. I do pray that you would give them wisdom, knowledge of your will, and the power, God, to carry your will out. I pray, Father, that you would help each of us as parents to have that long-range view, that we don't see the end of the story. And so help us to continue to bring our hearts and our very lives to you, and to entrust it all to you, knowing that the safest place to be is in the center of your will. So, Father, thank you for each and every parent watching. I pray your blessing over them, and I pray your blessing over their kids. I pray that you would help us to walk in a manner worthy of you, because you so are worthy. We love you. Amen.